Hi guys, is there a point in engaging with people who are too far gone? What I mean is, there are voters who are immune to facts. You can lead them to water, but you can't make them drink. You can explain to them the difference between an asylum seeker and an economic migrant, but they will refuse to see it. You can explain how asylum seekers aren't allowed to work, and that's why they're being housed in ex-hotels. You can also explain that the accommodation isn't a hotel because asylum seekers are in it. All of this can be politely explained to them, but they would prefer to listen to whatever Nigel Farage is saying about that particular topic. So as we listen to Harry here on the Ben Kentish show, I'll explain the actual value of such calls.
I know I am going to vote for reform now.
Okay.
Because I don't believe that the EU are allies of ours.
Right.
Because all they use us for is a dumping ground for their immigrants. They let them walk over their border from Portugal and wherever, and then they put them in France and put them on boats
Harry,
to England.
The EU doesn't put them on boats to England. That's the migrants themselves want to come to England.
The smugglers put them on boats to England.
Yes, they pay the smugglers money because they want to come to Britain.
Yes, because they make no effort to help them in France. They get nothing
Harry,
in France.
Hold on, sorry.
And
France takes more refugees and asylum seekers than Britain.
We cannot take no more.
But Harry, France takes more than we do.
Well, I don't know if they've got spare land, but we ain't.
But hold on, you just told me that France does nothing for them and they're all coming here. And actually, the numbers show that.
What I believe.
Yeah, but the numbers. But Harry,
they get.
The numbers,
they get houses here.
Harry,
they get everything.
Harry, please. The numbers show that more asylum seekers stay in France than come to Britain.
Yeah, maybe they keep the best. I don't know.
Maybe they keep the best. I don't know. But I'm going to dish out my opinion anyway. Okay. Why are asylum seekers coming to Britain? Why are they not staying in France? Because they don't want to stay in France, because there's no obligation on them to stay in France. Why are they coming to Britain? Because they have connections to Britain. They speak the language, or they have family and friends in Britain. Or in some cases, they're not able to get a visa to work in Britain because under the Conservatives, the access to visas was more and more restricted. So they have to find an alternative. And the other alternative, of course, is crossing the channel in a small boat. Now, is that the correct approach? No, it's not. But if somebody wants to get into Britain and they can't get a visa, wouldn't it make more sense to issue more visas, especially as there's a shortage of workers, issue more visas so people don't have to cross the channel in a small boat? But as we know, this is the only way for many people to get into Britain. They don't want to stay in France. There's no obligation on them to stay in France. And as Ben Kentish has pointed out, there are more asylum seekers in France than there are in Britain.
No.
I'm not sure.
But you can't say that France is doing nothing for them and they're all coming here, when actually France is taking more than Britain.
Yeah, France is taking more than Britain. Now, what is the value in a call like this? Look, Harry is too far gone. Nothing is going to convince Harry that asylum seekers are decent human beings or that Britain needs more immigration because there's a shortage of workers. So there's no point discussing this with Harry. He's already decided that Nigel Farage is going to fix this. Nigel Farage hasn't explained how he's going to fix it, or if he has, it doesn't make any sense. It's not logical, but it doesn't matter to people like Harry. Now, what is the value in listening to calls like this? It gives us an opportunity to push back on the narratives. The narrative that asylum seekers are in hotels. They're not in hotels. And if there's anyone still sitting on the fence on this issue, well, getting correct information may convince them that actually Nigel Farage is talking absolute tripe. These people are not in hotels, they're in ex-hotels. They don't have room service, they don't have menus, they don't have the normal trappings of a hotel. When we're talking about asylum seekers, why are they coming to Britain? They're coming to Britain because they have connections to Britain, as I pointed out before. Why are they in hotels? Or ex-hotels? Why aren't they renting houses like normal people? Why aren't they buying houses like normal people? Because they're not allowed to work. Why are they not allowed to work? Because it's a government policy to stop asylum seekers from working. The asylum seekers want to work, but they're not allowed to work. There's a whole range of sectors that are crying out for labour, crying out for workers, but they can't get them. So you have a significant number of asylum seekers who have skills, who want to work, are not allowed to work because of a government policy. And on the other hand, you have sectors of the economy who need workers but can't get them. Now, is Nigel Farage talking about allowing asylum seekers to work? I don't think so. So he's not interested in fixing problems. He's just interested in sitting on the sidelines and saying the government is doing it wrong. And unfortunately, people like Harry believe that Nigel Farage would do a better job. But once again, the value of this is there are people who don't understand the ins and outs of the asylum system. They don't understand what's the reality of immigration and the problems in different sectors that can't access the workers they need. So there is value in listening to people like Harry. He's the extreme. You're not going to convince Harry to vote for anyone other than Nigel Farage at this stage. But there are people who may be sitting on the fence going, well, is what Nigel Farage suggesting workable? Is this going to fix the problem? No, it's not. And we need to reach out to those people because they're the ones who, in many cases, decide the election. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.